What's going on, everybody? John Eric Paul here with my MMA news, and today's guest is coming off a victory at UFC 297, where he defeated Brad Katona by unanimous decision. Joined today by Garrett Armfield. Garrett, nice to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me again.
Hey, man, no problem at all. And I know we were joking a little bit before we came on air. I was telling you how the last time we did one of these, you were feeling the jet lag a little bit because you were coming from a fight from Singapore. This
Yeah.
time, jet lag, not too bad. Really close travel for you going to Toronto. Talk about what that's been like, just getting to see the world a little bit here, being in Singapore, now being in Toronto. Kind of nice, the perks of being a professional athlete, right?
Yeah, it's cool. Toronto was a really pretty city. It was way bigger than I thought it was too. But I had a great time there, and I stayed a couple days later. I stayed about 3 days after, so I did get a chance to try the food, which is like something I didn't get to do in Singapore. But yeah, all in all, it was a great trip, and I'm just looking forward to where I can go next.
What are the cool things you got to do in Toronto? Did you get to go to any, I know, like basketball games, hockey games? I know you're not a super big sports guy out of MMA, but you do anything fun like that?
No, we just ate really good food. And then we got a really cool Airbnb, so we got a place with a nice view, and we just did that, ate some good food, and I just spent some time with friends and family that came up. So
Nice, man. That's glad they had a great experience there. Obviously, you had
yeah.
a great fight there as well. We're going to get into a lot of this fight specifics now. Before we get into anything UFC 297 related, I just wanted to back up just a little bit some of the moves you made recently. And I think we talked a little bit about the last time as well, but you trained in Florida for quite some time. You made the move now to come back to Missouri. Just talk about that move a little bit, why that move was made, and how it's all been working out for you.
Yeah, about 8 months ago, I decided to uproot and move back home to Missouri. I was training in Florida, and Florida was great, but my time was just had passed there, and I knew I was ready for a new chapter, and I just needed to reset. So I packed up and I moved home to well, now I live on the Kansas side, but Kansas City, and I live in Overland Park, Kansas, and it's been perfect. It's kind of like as soon as I moved home, like life just started falling into place, and started winning fights, and it's been everything I could have asked for. Plus, it's cheaper to live here, so my money's going a little bit further, and so I feel like it was the right decision all around, professionally, financially, and personally.
And that's great that you're in that mindset too. I know I always tell everybody too, like I remember back when I was in college and I was competing in track and field, like when you're in that right mental mindset, things just seem to click. And every time you go out and compete, you just get
Yeah.
better and better and better. Do you kind of feel that you're kind of in that mindset now that everything is just kind of all the stars are aligned and everything's all just perfect?
Yeah, I do, and I feel like I'm like able to take advantage of every opportunity here, and you know, it's kind of hard being like I was like like a small fish in the ocean in Florida, but here I'm like a medium-sized fish in a smaller pond. So um, you know, it's nice going back home to like a smaller city where just things make more sense. It's what I'm used to.
And the results are definitely showing within the fight game, that's for sure. Let's talk about UFC 297 here a little bit. I know you had mentioned earlier, you really enjoyed being in Toronto and whatnot, but I wanted to ask about the fight week just a little bit, being that this was the first time you ever fought on a UFC pay-per-view event like this, big magnitude and whatnot. Just what was fight week kind of like, and did you enjoy kind of that big fight atmosphere with posters all over the place and the ceremonial weigh-ins and all that stuff?
Yeah, I did. It was definitely really cool. Um, They just it just seems like there's like a different energy to the event whenever it's a pay-per-view. And so there's like a lot more fans whenever I had my fight come up in Singapore, the stands were a little empty, but this one in Canada, it was a sold out house. So I really got to feel like the energy of the crowd, and I really enjoyed it. And so if I got to fight in the Apex, I will, but I hope to continue to fight in stadium shows. That would be ideal.
So you mentioned the energy of the crowd. I'm glad that you brought this up because it seemed like the Canadian fans were booing the U.S. fans a pretty decent amount. But during your fight, I really didn't notice too much booing. Did you hear any of that, or
Yeah.
did you not really
No,
pay too
I
attention
didn't
to that?
hear. No, I didn't really hear any booing. I was kind of like shocked that like I got a little bit of support or people just stayed quiet rather than booing. So that's something I did notice, and it was cool. At least the fans don't hate me too much over there.
I say one of the few Americans that didn't feel the booze over there in
Yeah.
Canada. Let's get into now the fight here a little bit. So for this fight, I mean, I thought your boxing was absolutely on point, not only
Thank you.
offensively but defensively as well. It's to me every time that Brad would throw a punch, you were moving your head, getting out of the way, but then dishing the punishment back, and every time you threw, landing absolutely perfectly. Did you feel that as well? That throughout the course of the fight, your boxing was absolutely on point.
Yeah, I did. Thank you for saying that. I just got into my flow really quick, and I'm a very dangerous fighter whenever I get into my flow state. So, it's somewhere I can get a lot in practice, but I haven't really been able to hit that in fights, maybe like one other time. Um, so it's nice to be able to do it like on a higher spotlight against a tougher opponent where there's more pressure. But yeah, so no, I definitely showed up and showed out. Really happy with how I performed.
Was that something from practice of like just drilling that you were able to land like that, or was it just kind of just the moment and everything? Again, kind of like we were talking about before with things falling into place, that everything just kind of all came together at the right
No,
time.
that's just like years and years of like experience to get the timing down.
And then in the last round, I know he was able to secure some takedowns. I thought for most of the fight that your takedown defense was pretty good. Just kind of, take us through that kind of that last round, what's kind of going on there. And did you think you definitely had those 2 rounds banked in and weren't too worried about it?
No, no, he definitely he took me down. Actually, I had thought I lost the fight right after because I was tired and did win the third round. But going back and watching the fight, I was much more happy with the decision. Didn't think I got robbed. I thought it was a close fight, but I did enough to earn the decision. Um, and I did get up with those takedowns. I mean, he didn't really control me or have too much damage, and so I was able to get up every time I did get taken down. I didn't finish around on bottom either, so it was a tough round, but I'm glad I was able to get up and still throw some strikes out at the end of the round there.
Yeah, and I mean, the way how I had it scored, I had you up winning those first 2 rounds. That's why I had asked that question. I guess just one other thing I want to ask about this fight before we get into kind of what's next and all that. One of the things they highlighted on the broadcast was when the fight started, they put the tail of the tape up, was your reach advantage for this fight. Now, I always say the best fighters are the ones that know how to use their reach. There are a lot of fighters that have reach advantages and don't know how to use it. So just talk about having those reach advantages like you normally typically have and how you go about executing a game plan around it.
Yeah, I got long arms and I have a good jab, so um I think having like the long arms, I used to whenever I'd fight, I would do a shorter guard, and I think since transitioning over to a longer form of guard, it's definitely helped with my timing and my jab. So yeah, I'm usually having like the longer reach, and I feel like I do a great job at taking advantage. I think I'm like deceptively longer than it looks when you're fighting me. You probably think like fighters. I've heard from a lot of my training partners that they think that I'm like out of range, but I'm not. So it's definitely a an X factor that I have and that I'm able to use.
Definitely is a great tool, and it played out great in this fight for you there. Let's just talk now, I guess, a little bit about what's next. I mean, 2024, really, when you think about it, has the potential to be a massive year for you. Obviously, you have to great start. You got to win here. I know, I think, one more fight left on the rookie UFC contract. Obviously, another win puts you, 3-1, maybe the opportunity to have a little bit more money than in the bank. Just kind of when you're looking at this year as a whole, what's kind of all in store for you?
Yeah, I'd love to fight three more times. There's definitely enough time in the year to get that done. So, I just take this next week and a half, 2 weeks off and just kind of recover and reset, and then we're right back to the grind. Usually I do like to like binge and like relax after fights, but I'm just so motivated right now that I don't want to. I still don't really want to drink at all. I don't want to go out and like party. All I want to do is get back to training, and there's gonna be a lot of money to be made this year, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm 100% ready for every opportunity that comes my way.
Awesome, man. I know. I can't wait to see it, and a lot of big things on the horizon there for you. I know we talked a little bit about, traveling and everything else. I guess is the plan to hopefully keep these, like you said, stadium type events where there's an arena and a crowd, even if that is in the U.S., or do you think maybe, I know it seems like more and more every year, there's more and more Apex shows. Do you think that might
Yeah,
be possibly what's in the mix next?
yeah, yeah. Of course. Like I said, I'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime, any place. You know, Doesn't really matter if it's in the Apex or if it's like in the Coliseum. I'll show up. So just staying ready.
Awesome, man. I appreciate all the time. Congratulations on the win again. Just last thing before you head out for the day. Go ahead, plug your social media so people know where to follow you at. You have management, sponsorships, any like coaches or teammates you got to give shout outs to, all that good stuff. You get the last word here today.
Yeah, shout out to everybody at Marathon MMA for helping me along this journey. If you guys want to follow my journey, go ahead and hit the follow button on Garrett Armfield 135 on Instagram and Armfield 135 on Twitter. Stay posted for whatever fights next. I'll let you guys know.